Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
When the midnight hour's calling and the world has gone to sleep, there's a voice across the darkness, digging mysteries buried deep. From UFOs to hauntings, ancient secrets carved in stone, there's only one place waiting. Welcome to the X Zone. From coast to coast, we're broadcasting across the USA and Canada too. With truth seekers and believers, bringing hidden stories through. Welcome to the X Zone, where the strange becomes the real. From ghosts and alien visitors to mysteries we can feel. The biggest names are joining us, sharing secrets still unknown. With Rob McConnell leading you into the X Zone.
And welcome to the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you on the CanCon Broadcast Network and our affiliates around the world. We're heard in around, what is it now, Craig? 170 countries. Wow. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And we're also live right here from the studios of the CanCon Broadcast Network in St. Catharines, Ontario, and we're also heard on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, CFAJ AM. That's also stream us on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Dona Masi, and she is the author of a gripping psychological thriller that blends emotional family drama with the enduring mystery of UFO encounters and alien abductions. The name of the book is The Taking, and joining me now is Dona Masi. And Dona, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad you're with us tonight. Tell us, what inspired you to write The Taking?
Well, I've always had an interest in UFOs. It's kind of gone on my entire life. I had an experience at one time in my life when I was a young kid, and I think that definitely had an influence on me growing up to write The Taking, along with my study of ufology and UFO folklore. Because as I said, I've always been very interested and read a lot of articles, watched a lot of documentaries, and done some research on my own. So those were really the influences.
And what was the encounter or the sighting that you had as a younger person that kind of sparked your lifelong interest in this?
Well, I was 7 years old, second grade, and I was at school. It was recess, and I was sitting on a swing or a bench, I believe, kind of by myself. There weren't a lot of other kids around me. And I looked up in the sky, and there, sort of at an angle and kind of close, sort of hovering above me, was a cylinder-shaped object. And it was very shiny. It glinted in the sun. It had all these different colors, like a prism, glinting off of it. There were two clouds on either end of it, so that the tips of the object were hidden behind the clouds. And I think I recall seeing windows in this object, this craft, and I was just really startled. And I said to myself, gosh, that looks like a plane, but it doesn't have wings, you know? So I was staring at it, and then I turned my head and I had a sensation. I turned my head, and then a second or two later, I don't know how long it was, but I looked back up at it, and it was still there, hovering above me. And instead of just being startled and sort of like a little nervous, I just had this really strong sensation of being so scared, so petrified, that I took off running back to the class. And by then, recess was over, and I just ran as fast as I could. I had this thought in my head that the teacher was going to be upset because I was late getting back. And when I walked into the class, she didn't notice. She didn't say anything. She didn't react. Nobody else did. And it struck me at the time that seemed really strange. And then I went over to my desk and I sat down. And the act of sitting down in the chair seemed to make the entire experience just disappear from my mind. And I forgot about it. But then I would have this sensation of remembering it again. But when I remembered it, it was as if I was remembering it for the very first time, and it had never happened before. And this went on for a long time. And then at some point, and I couldn't tell you exactly when it was, it suddenly stuck in my conscious mind. So it was there, and I never forgot it again. So it's quite vivid. Another thing that I wanted to add about the experience is that from when I was sitting there and I looked away from it, and then when I looked back up at it, I had a really strong sensation that there was time missing. Just I had no idea how long, but I had the sensation that something had happened in between when I was staring at it the first time and I looked away, and then when I looked back at it. And that was a very strange experience. So I have to say that sometimes I wonder whether it really happened, because it was a long time ago, and the only thing I have is the memory of it. There's no other way to verify that it actually happened. But it's a really strong feeling that I have that it did happen. So that was my experience. And I think that made a really strong impression on me. It must have, because I've always been interested in the subject. And then eventually I went on to write this book, The Taking, which, as you said, is a UFO story about a family that's dealing with this phenomenon and how it affects their lives.
Now, with your own sighting, whereabouts were you going to school at the time?
It was in Watertown, Connecticut. That's where I lived when I was young. And then I live in New Hampshire, in the U.S. now, and actually moved here when I was a kid with my family. But at the time, we were still living in Connecticut.
Did any of the other students talk about seeing this UFO that you saw?
No, not at all. And I didn't remember it. As I said, at the point that I sat down in my chair, I just forgot about it entirely. So I never really brought it up to anybody, mentioned it, told anybody what had happened to me. It wasn't until the time came when I remembered it so clearly, and it never went away, that I would occasionally tell somebody about it.
Well, what triggered you to remember it?
I don't know. I really don't know, except to say that I remembered it and forgot it so many times. And once I did remember it for good, I was aware of the fact that I had remembered it and then forgotten it, remembered it and forgotten. And this was some kind of pattern that went on. So I can't tell you why I suddenly remembered, other than to speculate that I had just thought about it, remembered it so many times that it finally got lodged in my mind.
Is it possible that you've had other sightings that you have forgotten about?
Possibly, but I can't say. I don't know. I mean, I haven't had any in my book, for instance, and a lot of experiencers have said this, that they may not remember their experiences, but they remember things. They have dreams that are disturbing and very vivid, and they can't put the pieces together. And sometimes they eventually will remember these experiences like they're very clear to them. So this could have happened to me, that I've had other experiences, but I still, I don't have any conscious memory of them.
Were you being able to track the, the approximate date of when this happened? Have you contacted any of the UFO organizations to see if they had any reports of a UFO sighting in Connecticut at that approximate date and time?
No, I haven't contacted anyone or any organization. I've done a few searches online by myself to see if there might have been newspaper reports of an event like I witnessed, and
Right.
I didn't come across anything. So I only have, what I remember
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that it's stuck with me finally, all these years. And I have definitely, and for no really discernible reason other than that, always been interested in the topic and pursued it heavily. Even in school, I wrote a research paper about it in college. Um, so that's what happened to me.
Now, have you thought of regressive hypnosis?
I have thought about that, and it's been suggested to me.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me thinks it would be kind of very fascinating to find out, and maybe get some information that would verify or, debunk what happened to me. But another part of me is kind of, do I really, really want to know for real that it happened? So I'm a little bit on the fence about that. But it's an interesting idea. Maybe I will go ahead and do it.
Yeah, your novel combines emotional family drama with UFO and alien encounter themes. Now, what drew you to that combination?
Well, as I said, I've studied the subjects of
Mm-hmm.
UFOs and alien abductions for a long time, and it hit me suddenly because of some things that I had been reading, some books, particularly I would say the books by Dr. John Mack, the psychiatrist at Harvard University, who
Mm-hmm.
um, saw patients who had strange memories, strange experiences. They didn't necessarily believe it when they started going to him that it was a UFO experience or an alien encounter or an alien abduction. But um, during the hypnosis sessions, these stories came out and et cetera, et cetera. And he spoke to so many people who had similar experiences. And as I read Dr. Mack's work, it hit me that this is a really human story. If it's all true, it's not just an alien being story or is there life in the universe sort of thing.
Right.
It's affecting real people, and it has an effect on them. People's reactions to these experiences definitely vary. I suppose it depends on the circumstances, was it positive, negative, their perspectives, etc. Sometimes they're often very traumatizing and terrifying.
Yeah, Donna, we've got to take a break. Please stand by.
Sure.
This hour is Donna Masi. And if you'd like to find out more about Donna, visit our website, DonaMasi.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here on the CanCon Broadcast Network and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CHAM, streaming us at classic1220.ca. I'm Rob McConnell. Whatever you do, don't go away, Donna, and I return after.
Hello.
Welcome to the X Zone, where the strange becomes the real. July 47 in the desert heat, a rancher found strange wreckage scattered at his feet. Silver like no metal anybody knew, whispers in the darkness said, could it all be true? From the skies above old New Mexico, something crashed where the cold winds blow. Roswell nights still call our name, and the world has never been the same. Roswell secrets
Explanation, Dona Masi is our special guest. She is the author of The Taking. And Donna, why do you think stories involving alien abductions continue to fascinate people worldwide?
Mm. Well, it's kind of an ancient mystery simply because there have been sightings since ancient times and things that people saw that they couldn't explain. And so there are reports throughout history. So people have always wondered. And of course, I think most humans, when they look up at the heavens, they do wonder, are we alone? At least the question would run through their minds occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's persistent and it's also, fascinating. We some people wonder, if it has to do with our origins or how the civilization be established on Earth and advancements that we've made. It's also, it's scary. People kind of like scary stories. It's a scary thing to think about and to imagine. And so I think that that's an attraction.
Mm-hmm. In your opinion, why do so many UFO experiencers feel or they report feelings of fear, isolation, and emotional trauma?
Hmm. Well, the fear has got to be because of the unknown about it. And it's such a sort of mind blowing experience when you see something that you don't understand and like nothing you've ever seen before and nothing that you can point to on our planet that would explain it. That's, you're kind of startled and in shock, I would imagine. Some people are elated to see them, to see UAPs, and others are unnerved by it.
Do you believe that there may be truth hidden within folklore?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Rob?
Yeah. Do you believe that there may be truths hidden within folklore?
Oh, sure. Yes, I do. I mean, um, at least partial truths. I do believe so.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Your book explores grief alongside with unexplained phenomena. Why was it important to intertwine human emotion, or I should say, human emotion with mystery?
Hmm. Well, a couple of reasons. I like writing characters. I like to try to make characters that I write
Hmm.
relatable to people and to maybe, touch their emotions when they read about these people and become invested in the characters. And I like dramatic stories myself. I like to write them, and I really enjoy a story with good characters. And so that's one reason.
Hmm.
And then I wanted to explain the powerful experience of what it might be like, and allegedly is like for some people to go through this. I mean, I felt like it was an important topic because if others are like myself, they didn't really think about it as a human issue, as a people issue for a long time until it dawned on me. So I wanted to convey all that, the deep emotion that's involved, the self doubt and the confusion and the fear and the feeling like you don't know whether you want to tell somebody because you think they're going to think you crazy, they're going to mock you. And that's a whole nother part of it too that keeps people from speaking about their experiences sometimes and keeping them
Hmm.
bottled up for decades.
Now, in the taking, are you one of the characters within the book?
Well, no, not really. I mean, the protagonist, the main character, is a girl, a young
Hmm.
girl. She starts out at one age, and then it the span of the book is about 10 years of their lives, and so she does get older. Um, I don't really think of myself as a character. I mean, it's not autobiographical, except that I do borrow from my own experience a bit to put in the book in one scene. This experience I described. Um, so it is like me in that sense, but it's not. modeled after me.
How difficult is it to write believable characters while dealing with such an extraordinary subject matter like UFOs?
Mm, yeah, well, that was a fun challenge of it. And I don't know if I would have ever written a book about UFOs that didn't have the component of relationships and people, where it really focused on people and their ordinary lives. Because I think what intrigued me most and made me want to write this book was to explore that idea, how it affects real people.
Your protagonist struggles with unresolved emotional pain. Do you believe trauma changes how people perceive reality?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that it affects how they may interact with the world, how they view other people, how it can affect their relationships with other people. Maybe they don't have trust. My character, one thing about her is that she really is kind of a fighter, and she doesn't tolerate injustice toward other people. It really upsets her a great deal when she sees that happen. And there's a couple of scenes in the book where she comes to the defense of somebody, and then another one where she's very much condemns somebody who's being unkind to somebody else. So she has no tolerance for that, because she doesn't like to see people victimized, because she herself has been victimized, and she doesn't know that for a while, but it's still something that's going on inside her. So to answer your question, yeah, I do think it affects their perspective, and by affecting one's perspective, it does affect, maybe change alter your view of reality.
Exonation, our guest this hour is Dona Masi. If you'd like to find out more about Donna, visit our website at donamasi.com. Donna, why do you think society often dismisses people who report paranormal or UFO experiences?
Well, it's not something that people experience every day. So we don't expect to see it. We live in a world where we rely on our five senses only. So if they don't see it with their own eyes, they don't believe it. And people need concrete proof, whether it's their own experience or, an alien body or to help them believe that this kind of thing happens, and that the people someone who tells them that they experienced this thing can be believed.
Doing the research for your book, have you interviewed or spoken with people who claim to have had unexplained encounters or sightings, alien abductions?
Yeah, not for my book, but for, in conversations with people. Sometimes somebody would because I always love to talk about it, and so sometimes people would just tell me about experiences they've had. And also, when I was, in grad school, and I was taking an anthropology class, I did write a research paper on UFO folklore, and I did speak with quite a few people for that research project. And I spoke to an investigator from MUFON. I spoke with Kathleen Martin, who is the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, who had their own alien abductions experience back in 1961. She's a ufologist, and others, while I was doing the research, I had a couple of friends who agreed to tell me about their experiences too, as well as speaking to, investigators, researchers, etc.
What are some of the strangest real-life UFO cases that influenced your thinking as a writer? You mentioned Betty and Barney Hill.
Yeah. Yes, Betty and Barney Hill is a really fascinating case. I was always interested in it because I kind of grew up knowing about it since it happened in New Hampshire. where I live.
Right.
And I actually saw Betty a few times. I never met her, but once when I was at a restaurant, I saw her there. She was eating. And there was one other time I saw her, and we were all like, that's Betty Hill, you know? I should have gone up and said, introduced myself, but, you know, I was a little shy and I didn't want to bother her. So that was kind of cool, having it in my own backyard. And plus, there's such great physical evidence that comes from that case.
What physical what physical evidence?
Well, let's see. There's the Betty's dress that she had on that night of the abduction. When they got home, you know, I mean, by the time they got home, it was all torn. It was a brand new dress. She couldn't explain that. The zipper was all torn. It had a white powder on it. I mean, a pink powder all over it. And she just hung it up and put it in her closet and really never put it on, hardly ever looked at it again. And then later on, the dress was given to several chemists to try to analyze what that pink powder consisted of, to explain it. They could not find any substance on Earth that would explain what it was. It didn't align to anything that any known substance. So that's an interesting thing.
Truly strange.
Very.
Exonation, we've got to take our break. When we come back, more with our guest this hour. Her name is Dona Masi. She's the author of The Taking. If you'd like to find out more about Donna, visit her website at www.donamasi.com.
July 47 in the desert heat, a rancher found strange wreckage scattered at his feet. Silver like no metal anybody knew, whispers in the darkness said, could it all be true? From the skies above, oh new. In the twilight glow where the shadows creep, in the quiet woods where secrets sleep, there's a tale that's told by the firelight's dance of a great wild spirit and a second chance. They say he's a giant with a heart so bold, covered in darkness with stories untold, a creature of legend from the tales of yore, known as Bigfoot, but he's so much more. Oh, Bigfoot, wanderer of the night, in the whispers of the pines, you're a fleeting sight, with your massive footsteps in the soft, cool earth. You're a symbol of mystery, of nature's rebirth. From the mountains high to the valleys below.
And welcome back. Dona Masi is our guest this hour, Exonation. She is the author of The Taking. And where is your book available so listeners can go and buy it after the show?
Sure. It's available on Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble. You can get it at my publishers, too, on their website, Collective Inc., and just search for it there. The imprint is Run Fire Books, but at Collective Inc. And at my website, that's a convenient place to get it. Like you said, donamasi.com, and there's an order button up in the right-hand corner of every page on the site. It'll take you to Amazon.
Okay, super. Do you think the government knows more about UFOs than they publicly admit, Donna?
Oh, I'm sure they do. Definitely. I mean, and there's many people who are certain that, they're hiding the truth about it. And that, have reversed engineered technology from UFO crashes, which might be the reason why they want to hide it.
Okay, I have a hard time with the reverse engineering aspect.
Hmm.
What makes you think that UFO crashed vehicles have been used in reverse engineering on military aircraft or on terrestrial mechanical devices?
Well, simply just things that I've read, things that I've watched from people in the military, um, who have said so, and contractors. I mean, there's a lot of leaks about it. There's a lot of
Hmm.
reports. There is one man, and I don't remember his name, but he was an Air Force officer or an Army officer at the time of the Roswell crash, and his job, I think, he came out years later, and he talked quite candidly about the secret weapons program that were being developed from crashed UFOs and technology
Hmm.
that they've reversed engineered. So do I know that for a fact?
Yeah.
No, but possibly. And then some people speculate that some of the crafts that we do see in the sky are actually U.S. military technology, from reversed engineering from UFO crafts, like these gigantic triangular shaped objects, for instance.
All right. Um, your writing's been described as atmospheric and emotionally layered. How would you describe your storytelling style?
Um, well, dramatic, emotional,
Hmm.
but it's not only that. I don't think I want to put in all sorts of kind of things in there, like elements of you that reflect human life. Humor,
Hmm.
what just and pathos, and so just to have true to life characters that are believable in the circumstance that I've given them as an author.
What was the hardest part for you as the author of The Taking to write about?
Well, I think one of the hardest things to pull off was to create suspense. The book's pretty suspenseful,
Hmm.
and I mean, the suspense rises and falls, but every time I had to write a new suspenseful scene, I was grappling with different words to describe it in a fresher way, and to keep it fresh, and so I didn't sound like I was repeating myself or it sounded cliche. That was a really challenging thing. And of course, when you're writing a book, you're living with it so long
Yeah.
that it's easy to feel that you're repeating yourself constantly. So I tried really hard to keep it fresh.
This is a review from about your book, The Taking. That's in the up and coming newspaper articles in the X Chronicles newspaper that is coming out the 1st of June. And it says The Taking by Dona Masi is a gripping psychological thriller that blends emotional family drama with enduring mystery of UFO encounters and alien abductions. Through atmospheric storytelling and deeply human characters, Massey explores themes of grief, trauma, fear, and the unknown in a way that keeps her readers emotionally invested from beginning to end. Rather than relying solely on science fiction or paranormal suspense, The Taking examines how unexplained events can profoundly affect individuals and families, leaving behind emotional scars, unanswered questions, and haunting uncertainty. Donna Masi's writing is intelligent, suspenseful, and emotionally layered, making the novel both a compelling mystery and a thought provoking exploration of the human condition. For readers fascinated by UFO lore, psychological suspense, and stories that challenge our understanding of reality, The Taking delivers a chilling and unforgettable experience. Wow,
Wonderful.
I'd say that's an excellent review.
Thank you for reading it.
Oh, my great pleasure. Um, what was the hardest part for you writing this book? Did you come up with writer's block?
Sure. Yes, I did. sometimes I didn't know where I was going to
Mm-hmm.
take it after I'd written, a bunch of chapters and gotten to a turning point where with the story and know exactly where I was going to take it. So sure, I had to think about it, and I did take breaks to think, and it wasn't like I was thinking about it all the time, but then all of a sudden I get an idea, and it just said my inner voice told me that's it. One example is the ending. I didn't know exactly how I would end it. And then all of a sudden, I just said, yeah, okay, that's it. And I can't think of anything else that I can think of that would be better in the sense that it would convey what I was trying to say all along, which is that nobody knows for sure what
Mm-hmm.
this is. I if there's such ambiguity about it, I can't even talk. Ambiguity. There you go.
There you go.
And so, therefore, that's one of the feelings I had that made me come up with the ending that I did.
What did your family think about the book when they read it?
Oh, they liked it a lot. Of course, they're my family,
Mm-hmm.
so but they did like it. Yes.
Were they
And
aware of your UFO encounter prior to reading your book? And did you tell them about what the inspiration of the book was?
yeah, I had told my parents are deceased now,
I'm
but I
sorry.
did tell my parents a long time ago about it at
Mm-hmm.
some point, and they were really surprised. They're like, and my dad said, "At Polk School?" Because I told him it was at school,
Sure.
and I said, "Yeah," and he was just like, "Whoa, wow." And they seemed to believe me, or at least think it was possibly true. In fact, I think they told me that they saw something once when they were spending a weekend in Lake Champlain in Vermont. And they woke up in the middle of the night and they saw a glowing object hovering over the surface of Lake Champlain. And they just watched it, and it was still there. And they finally went back to sleep. But so they
Hmm.
had reason to think themselves that there could be something very strange going on.
Was the object just hovering there?
Yeah, they said they woke up, they for some reason or another,
Hmm.
and they went to the window and they looked out, and they weren't woken up by any noise, but they
Right.
just woke up and they saw it out there and it was hovering over the water, and they were watching it quite a
Wow.
while, but it's the middle of the night, and I think that they were waiting for it to do something, but
Hmm.
it didn't, and they went back to bed.
Why I was asking if it was moving or not is because I'm very familiar with the Lake Champlain sides of Vermont as well as New York, and I know that over Lake Champlain there's a certain approach to the Air Force base at Plattsburgh,
Hmm.
and I know in the past many sightings have been found to be military aircraft returning to the Plattsburgh Air Force Base, but since this object was stationary, wow.
Yeah, yeah, it was weird. And here
Now,
again, when he told me, I was like, oh wow, that's cool.
now I'm just wondering if there's a connection between the sighting that your parents had and the sighting that you had. Is it possible that there's more to this story now that we know that your parents had a UFO sighting and you had a UFO sighting? Do you think that there's more than just a coincidence at play here? That there may be more to this story? Because we know for a fact that many families have UFO encounters, you know,
Yeah.
that are connected with mom and dad to the children and so on.
I don't know. To, to be honest,
Hmm.
Rob, I've never put those two things together,
Wow.
connected them in that way. But you might have a point. And maybe if I did the hypnotic
Yeah.
regression, I'd get some answers.
Strange, truly strange. Something that I've also realized that more and more children are coming out with sighting encounters than we
Hmm.
ever thought. There was a school in, I believe it was Africa, where a bunch of children were playing outside at lunchtime, and apparently, according to the children, a UFO landed in the schoolyard,
Hmm.
and there was interaction between the occupants of the craft and the children. So, who knows? Maybe children are going to be the the catalyst for the disclosure and the first contact.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, they're non-threatening.
Yeah, that's true. And children don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's the politicians, well, game over before they say anything. Don, I'd like you to stand by. We've got to take our final break. I love where you're coming from. I love the way you write. I love your honesty. And I wish you much success with the taking. So
Thank
please
you so
stand
much.
by. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue with my special guest this hour, Dona Masi. Once again, Exonation, if you'd like to get a copy of Donna's book, if you'd like to learn more about Donna, visit her website, DONAMASI.com. The X Zone, a place where people dare to believe, dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the CanCom Broadcast Network, coming from our studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, that not only broadcast our show on 1220 AM, but they also stream us around the world at classic1220.ca.
In a second chance, they say he's a giant with a heart so bold, covered in darkness with stories untold, a creature of legend from the tales of yore, known as Bigfoot, but he's so when the moon bleeds black on All Hallows Eve, whispers crawl through the dead oak leaves, candles flicker in the graveyard's breath, calling spirits back from death. The witches are awake tonight, dancing around the firelight. Spells are cast, the veil is thin. Let the wicked feast begin. Screams will echo through the sky. You will laugh before you die. Run if you dare, make no mistake. The witches are awake. Black cats hiss on a cobblestone.
Dona Masi is our special guest this hour, Exonation. She is the author of The Taking. And for more information about Donna or how you can get your very own copy of The Taking, visit www.donamasi.com. Is there going to be a follow-up to The Taking?
Possibly. I haven't started writing a sequel. I have some ideas for one. What I thought I'd like to do is to write a screenplay, develop like a pilot
Right.
for a short series. And so I started writing one, and I have to really apply myself. I've been a bit undisciplined about that, but it's something I really want to do. I think it'd be fun and exciting to do it. I've never written a screenplay. I've written a couple of plays. So I think it's partly in my wheelhouse, but that's exciting to me. I think it'd make a pretty good screenplay.
Speaking about screenplays, as you probably know, Donna, that on June the 12th, the movie Disclosure is going to be released, and it's written by Steven Spielberg. And
Yes.
it's going to be interesting. And I made a prediction that we are going to be receiving more UFO reports, more reports on alien abductions, and anything to do with the UFO phenomenon once that film is released, just like happened with Close Encounters of a Third Kind, E.T., and everything else. Do you think humanity is ready for the truth when it comes to extraterrestrials?
Gosh, humanity as a whole, probably not. I mean, there's a certain portion of humanity that is and would welcome the knowledge of it being a true situation of the other civilizations visiting our planet. But of course, undoubtedly, There would be fear and panic along with that, I suppose. If you want to compare it to other kinds of, to any other huge sort of crisis situation, that, I mean, it would really instantly throw us into a sensation of, well, we really don't, we had no clue, things are so different than what we ever imagined, our own reality. It would be definitely a shock. Hopefully it would bring nations together, not necessarily to fight the aliens, but
Right.
have a positive effect on humanity.
Could alien encounter stories be modern versions of ancient myths and folklore?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Now you could say that today, since we are have an awareness of the universe and planets and stars and how vast it is, and we have technology of our own that can go into space, that we see it through the lens of extraterrestrial visitors now, whereas before the same kind of beings sightings were chalked up to being magical creatures, fairies, what have you. So certainly, yeah, it depends on, much of it must depend on the era, because of course people at different times in history have entirely different realities and perspectives about things.
Do you believe there's a connection between consciousness and the UFO phenomenon?
Um, let's see. Could you just explain that a little bit more? What you what you mean?
Well, you know how there's been an increase in study into consciousness and spirituality.
Hmm.
And my question is to you is, do you think that there's a connection between consciousness and I'll put in spirituality and the UFO phenomenon?
I think that the more that people's consciousnesses are raised, maybe the more likely they are to see one or to be tuned into other dimensions, other realities that probably exist. So there's that. Yes, definitely. Do I think that it can be explained by, in spiritual terms, like angels or
Mm-hmm.
demons? Um, I think, I can't say for sure, but I think that maybe there's a variety of different supernatural things going out on, and more than we realize. And some of them, angels, spiritual creatures, some of them aliens, some of them, some have our best interests at heart, some of them don't. So I would say that there's a lot of different supernatural activity, and I don't know if it can be chalked up, aliens can be chalked
Mm-hmm.
up to just one of those explanations, or what we think might be aliens.
Do you think science and the paranormal, including ufology, can actually coexist?
I don't see why not. I mean, people in ufology go about it like scientists with their research in many ways. For instance, investigators use scientific methods to look at these cases, and police, law enforcement techniques to investigate them. I
Well,
mean, scientists are looking at the sky,
yeah, when you're talking about UFO investigators, and comparing to them the way that they conduct investigations to a police officer, I don't see a similarity here whatsoever. I know that there are a number of current and former police officers who have taken up UFO investigations because of encounters that they've had.
hmm
But the typical armchair UFO investigator that just does investigations on the internet, who hasn't taken any credible UFO course, I'm sorry, any credible investigative course, I have a hard time taking anything that they say is serious.
Yeah. Well, certainly. I mean, there are ones, what you point to, yeah, I would agree. MUFON, for instance, they train their investigators to sort of look at it as, well, a crime scene. For instance, when they go to where a place where a UFO allegedly
Mm-hmm.
landed, to take measurements, to use Geiger counters to try to, or met tools to measure radioactivity. There's lots of things that they do to really examine the place where sighting took place,
Yeah,
especially.
but what they're doing is, and what they're doing, and all investigators to some extent are using technology that we have, surmising that if in fact these craft are extraterrestrial, that they would be using any technology that we would be able to detect.
I don't know if that's presumed by everybody. I mean, that we use the tools that we possess.
Mm-hmm.
It's like to try to figure things out. Maybe I know don't think this is a great analogy, but for instance, like an archaeologist looking or an anthropologist looking at people in the past, sometimes they gain knowledge by looking at the present, like if anthropologists
Mm-hmm.
look at are interacting with a group of indigenous people and learning about them, they come to some conclusions based on how people in thousands of years ago in indigenous cultures what they did. So I know that's not a good analogy, but those are the only
Yeah.
technologies that we have have right now, and maybe the best we can do. I think that many of these serious investigators are pretty mindful and aware of the fact that the tools they have are limited and their knowledge is limited. It has to be, somewhat
Gotcha.
limited.
Donna, what message or emotional takeaways do you hope that readers gain from reading The Taking?
Mhm. Well, I hope that they'll enjoy it. I hope that it'll be immersive for them, that they'll just kind of be swept along with the story and, like, care about the characters, uh, feel worried about them when they sense that they're at risk, and be emotionally pulled into the story. That's my greatest hope. And they'll believe the situation, even though it's, you know, based in a supernatural
Mm-hmm.
paranormal events, that they will believe in it in the context of the story as they're reading it. They won't say, "Oh, that's," have any moments where they say, "Oh, this is just unbelievable," because
Sure.
you just people want to become immersed in the story, and they want to believe what's happening is real, in the context of the story.
I've got about a minute and 15 seconds here for this final question. Are there themes in the taking that reflect concerns about the modern world that we're in?
Let's see. Well, yes, I think some of them are age old too, but they exist in the modern world. Um, the concern about, I would say emotionally, making connections with people, love, a sense of loss, just being human.
Right.
um, I think is where the main themes are tied to. I mean, I do make reference to climate change, not directly, but there's a couple of moments where I do, where when characters reflecting and how the winters haven't been as cold or as snowy of late, and this happens to be a very snowy and cold winter, and he's reflecting on the years before that. So, not directly, but overall, yeah, it's about life. It's about humanity. It's about human beings and people, and the emotions that we feel, good and bad, and being brave
Hmm.
when you're scared, on coping with things that are difficult.
Don, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. continued success and Exonation. If you'd like to find out more about our guest this hour, Dona Masi, visit our website, www.donamasi.com, and the name of her book is The Taking. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We'll be back after this short news break right here on the CanCon Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, here in St. Catharines, streaming us at classic1220.ca.
Our way.